Welcome to my channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. And hit the bell so you never miss an African folk tale. In a quiet village, hidden among rolling hills and rivers that glistened under the sun, lived a boy named Kofi. Unlike the other children, Kofi had no parents. His mother had died when he was very young, and his father had been lost to sickness. The villagers called him the orphan. While other children ran home to warm meals, Kofi searched for leftovers. While others slept in huts, he lay on the ground, staring at the sky. Some nights, the cold wind bit his skin. Other nights, the rain soaked his rags. But Kofi never cried for long. When the stars blinked above him, he whispered, one day, I will be more than this." The villagers shook their heads. "Poor boy," they said, "an orphan can never rise." But the ancestors were listening, and the gods never forget a pure heart. Life tested Kofi every day. He fetched water until his shoulders ached, swept courtyards, and carried baskets heavier than himself, all for a handful of food. Children mocked him. "Look at Kofi, the beggar boy." Even the elders looked through him as if he was invisible. Yet Kofi never grew bitter. When he had nothing, he shared his laughter. When he was hungry, he sang songs to ease his pain. Sometimes, when the moon was high, he whispered to himself, "The river starts small, but it always finds the ocean." Though the villagers ignored him, the gods watched closely. Every act of kindness Kofi gave, every burden he carried, became a seed planted in the soil of destiny. Far away in the royal city, the great king faced a problem. He had no son, no heir to his throne. He feared what would happen to his people when he was gone. And so he made a proclamation. "Let all the young men of the land come forth. The one who proves himself wise, brave, and compassionate shall be my successor." The news spread like wildfire. Noble families polished their sons, warriors sharpened their spears, and merchants dressed their heirs in gold. The entire kingdom prepared. In the little village, Kofi listened with wide eyes. The people laughed at him. "You? A barefoot orphan? Stay in your place." But Kofi's heart burned like fire. He clenched his fists and whispered, "Why not me? Even the orphan has dreams." Kofi set out on the long road to the palace armed with nothing but courage. The journey tested him more than he could imagine. On the first day, he saw an old man struggling with firewood. The villagers hurried past, too busy thinking of the contest. But Kofi stopped. He lifted the heavy load onto his back, though it bent him nearly in two. The old man's eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you, child," he whispered. On the second day, he found a starving dog. Many would have kicked it aside, but Kofi tore his last piece of bread and fed it gently. The dog wagged its tail and followed him for miles, as if guarding him. On the third day, he heard the cry of a lost child. The little girl's tears stained her dusty cheeks. Kofi lifted her on his shoulders and walked until he found her home. Her mother wept with joy. "The gods bless you, boy," she said. Kofi did not know, but the ancestors were watching each step, and they were pleased. After many days, Kofi reached the royal city. The palace gates loomed tall, carved with golden lions and guarded by soldiers in shining armor. Crowds of young men had gathered, dressed in robes of silk, with jeweled daggers at their sides. When Kofi stepped forward in his rags, they roared with laughter. "Look, the orphan thinks he can be king." One sneered. Another shouted, "Go home, beggar boy." But Kofi's spirit did not break. He stood tall, his eyes shining with quiet strength. "I have walked too far to turn back," he whispered. The gates opened, and the trials began. The first test was strength. The young men wrestled wild beasts and lifted stones as heavy as oxen. Many failed, some boasted. But when it was Kofi's turn, he did not boast. He fought with calm, relying on balance and speed rather than brute force. The crowd gasped as the ragged boy overcame challenges that even the strongest struggled with. The second test was wisdom. The king's advisors asked riddles and presented puzzles. Many contestants grew angry, others mocked the questions. But Kofi listened, thought carefully, and answered with humility. One advisor leaned to another and whispered, "This boy sees with more than his eyes. He sees with his heart." One by one, the rich and proud fell away, yet the orphan still stood. At last, the king announced the final trial. His voice echoed through the grand hall. "A true king must serve, not be served. The one who shows the greatest compassion shall wear the crown." The servants entered with a tray of food and set it before the contestants. Many had grown hungry from days of trial. The moment the tray touched the ground, the young men lunged like wild animals, snatching meat and bread, fighting each other for more. But Kofi did not move. He took only a small portion. Then he noticed a servant child in the corner, eyes wide with hunger. Without hesitation, he walked over and gave his food away. The hall grew silent. The king leaned forward, his eyes burning with recognition. In that moment, he saw not an orphan, but a leader. The king rose slowly from his throne. He lifted the golden crown from his head, his voice steady. "Come forward, child." Kofi's heart pounded as he stepped forward. The hall buzzed with disbelief. The rich youths whispered angrily, "Impossible! He is a nobody." But the king silenced them with a wave. He placed the crown upon the orphan's head and declared, "From this day forward, you are no longer the boy without a family. You are Kofi, king of our people." The hall erupted, some in shock, others in awe. The boy who once slept under the stars now stood crowned, chosen not by wealth or strength, but by the greatness of his heart. Years passed. King Kofi ruled with wisdom and compassion. He remembered the sting of hunger, so he opened the palace stores to feed the poor. He remembered the loneliness of being an orphan, so he built homes where every child would find love. He remembered the cruelty of mockery, so he treated all his people with dignity, no matter how poor or small. The land flourished. Farmers harvested in abundance. Children laughed in the streets, and peace reigned in the kingdom. Bards sang songs of King Kofi, the orphan who became a king. And even now, generations later, his story is told. For greatness is not measured by where you are born, but by the choices you make and the heart you carry.